Welcome back to lesson 11 of our Photoshop tutorials. My name is Arnold Faller and today I'm going to give you an overview of a whole series of techniques under the title Skin Retouching. For every single task we do, there's a ton of tutorials out there on YouTube, so if you want to learn more and get into the details, just check them out. Today we're not trying to copy all the mobile beauty apps out there that give you a horrible plastic look. I would like to give you the tools to work maybe on your own image, picture of course, to improve skin quality, remove unwanted blemishes, maybe get some color back into it, and so on. I would like to demonstrate the workflow on an image I found of Angelina Jolie not wearing any makeup, so that is the perfect starting point for what we're trying to do. So let's get started. The first thing that I would like to do is I would like to start with retouching the skin by removing the some of the blemishes that you see. I would like to start the following way. Before we start, there's obviously some of the blemishes, some birthmarks and so on, some that you maybe want to keep because they're part of your identity and so on. But for this case, I'm just removing whatever I see to make the before and after more obvious. I would like to start by preparing everything to remove the blemishes. First, we need an extra layer, an empty layer on top, because I'm trying to do it non-destructive. By the way, I'm also going to remove the background here, so just double click the icon or open the lock back there. And now I'm going to add a new layer, and on this new layer I'm going to remove the blemishes. But to make sure, I'm going to add an extra check layer on top that makes them even stronger, so that we know exactly where we are. And this looks a little horrible because it's really exaggerating all the spots. That's why we're going to remove it, of course, later. So to do this, on top of your layer, also on top of the one that you will work on, this one, you're gonna add an adjustment layer. And we use black and white, adjustment layer, black and white, which turns it into a grayscale image. And now for your grayscale image, find the reds and darken them. And you can see there's a certain point where the blemishes and spots on the face are getting really strong. If it's getting too dark, you can also lighten up the yellows a little bit, just to make it a little bit more pleasing to look at and to work with. So make sure this layer really is on top of your stack and you are only working on the layer below. So we're on the layer below, and now I'm going to zoom in, not too far, but maybe 100, or if you want to go more into details, maybe 200%. But 100 is fine, and then you can see it really looks awful. So this is something we're going to remove later as soon as possible. So to remove the spots on the layer, I'm on the layer 1. I'm going to choose, there's different ways to do it. The faster one, the spot healing tool, but the regular healing tool keeps more of the texture of the skin. So use the regular healing tool and make sure that the blend mode is set to normal. That's the default. And the sample is not set to all layers, but we're going to set current and below, because we don't want to sample anything from the black and white adjustment layer. So we are on the layer 1, current and below. And how does it work? The healing brush tool. So to heal something like this, you have to adjust your size, the size of your brush. It's a soft brush, and I usually do it with a right click. And then, sorry, I clicked wrong. And then you use Alt and pick a location somewhere close to the point you want to overwrite. And then you click by not painting on it, by some tabbing on it. So I have to do that many, many times. So pick somewhere and then click and tab on it. If it's too long, if it's something longer, like here's this little wrinkle here, that then you can also paint. So click and drag on it. But make sure you always pick new locations, because now when I paint again, it's still picking the old location. So pick a location and then paint over it. If there's something nearby, you can also do two at the same time, but usually I would suggest to pick something new. Oh, don't pick the spot by itself. And if it's a little bit longer, you can also paint on it. So let's give me a minute and I'll do it quickly. Okay, so here's the result. I'm going to turn off the horrible layer. We are still in 100%. Here's the before and after. So I removed all kinds of little spots there. As soon as we turn off the black and white adjustment layer, it's not going to looking so horrible. So you can still leave some there. Here's a little hint. For example, let's remove the check layer here. So here's a little hint. When you look at her eyebrows, there is one hair that's sticking out. Sometimes that is not so easy to remove with the healing brush tool. You would obviously pick something from right next to it and then paint over it, but it still drags out the darkness from the hair, and then it looks even worse because then it's a larger dark spot. Also, for example, here, if you want to remove a little bit of the hair that is sticking up there, it's better not to use the spot healing brush, but to use the regular clone stamp tool for that. Also, I removed the layer anyway, but if you still have the check layer on, you should also go for current and below. And then you pick something from right next to it, and then you paint over that without the spot healing tool, because that works better. So here we are. So just a little of those hair. I'm going to leave this hair in there. I'm not sure. Maybe I should also shorten that a little bit. See, that was what I meant. Edit, undo. So when I use the spot, when I use the healing brush tool very close to a dark area, it will pull out the darkness of that. And this is not what I want. I just had to remove it over there. So here's one more. So those are good. And maybe this one. And we're done so far. The next thing is I also want to fix it right now. The eyes are okay for right now. There's only one thing that I would like to remove right away. It is this the little what's it called? Blood vessel, a vein. No, it's an arteria. Let's zoom in even more. So we are here at 200%. I'm going to use the brush again. I use a really small brush there, obviously, yes. And it is also helpful that you, sometimes for the eyes, it is quite helpful to go for a different blend mode that's lighten, because when you pick it, you don't accidentally darken it. So I'm just selecting it, and I'm, of course, picking some some clean spot there, and I used lighten, also up here maybe, to fix that. So same problem, too close to a dark spot will not work well. So let's bring that back to normal. Good. So we are quite satisfied with what we have. By the way, if sometimes it helps when you're looking at a face, see, here's a mistake also. Now we're getting really into detail. This is also probably where I used the healing brush. Let's get the clone stamp tool and get some clean skin with this tool. Good. Yeah, sometimes when you look at a face and it's just, you miss some spots because you're just so used to looking at a certain face. Sometimes it also helps when you rotate your picture. Therefore, you hold the R key on your keyboard, and then you can rotate. For example, you can rotate it upside down and then continue working upside down. If you want to go back to your original, just again hold the R key and up here press reset view. So that's quite good, especially when you're working with a tablet, not with a mouse, but with a pen and a tablet. You know that certain movements are easier in some direction. So when you have a piece of paper, you also constantly rotate it when you're drawing something with a pencil. That is the same tool. With R, you can rotate it. And then with R and reset view, you're back to the original view. Also the tool, you are right away to the same tool that you have used before. So when you use the brush, you can continue to brush. The next thing, so if we are satisfied with our result, I'm going to keep the original layer here, which was my layer 0. So I'm going to make another copy. There's many ways to do a copy. You can either drag it down onto the new button, you can do a right click and use duplicate layer, or I think it's time also for you guys to learn that there's a shortcut, and that is Control J or Command J on a Mac. Control J on a Mac. Command J on a Mac. So here's my original layer that I'm going to turn off. This is the one I'm never going to touch. Now here's the next technique that I would like to use, and if I am satisfied with the result of my overlaying layer 1, I'm going to merge those two together. The shortcut for merging down is Control E. So you select the top one and you hit Control E, like in elevator, E to merge down. Now you merged the new layer, the new makeup layer on top with this one. Okay, so now we are ready to do the next step. And the next step is a technique that's called the dodge and burn. Sorry. With the technique dodge and burn, and again, if you go on YouTube, you can find all kinds of tutorials for what you can do with it. Basically, dodge and burn means dodging means lighting up certain areas, and burning means darkening certain areas. And we do it in very smooth changes, and we're going to use it for brightening up certain dark spots and maybe get rid of some of the highlights or little darken them, burning them down. And therefore, here it is. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer again on top, empty. And this new layer I'm going to fill in 50% gray. So the layer is selected. I'm going for Edit, Fill, and I'm picking 50% gray. So here's my 50% gray. And now for this 50% gray layer, I'm going to use a blend mode, and the blend mode will be soft light. So different blend mode, soft light. When you use blend mode soft light, you notice that nothing changes because soft light, the soft light layer doesn't do anything to the layer below if it's 50% gray. Everything that's darker than 50% gray will darken the layer below, and everything that's brighter than 50% gray will lighten it up. Okay, so as long as it's gray, we're not doing anything. So now on the layer gray, we make sure that our foreground color and background color are black and white. By the way, there is Shift D. So if you have accidentally any other color, it doesn't matter. So let's make one more color here, red and purple. So if you have any colors there, with Shift D, you can switch them to black and white. So now we are in black and white, and I would like to start with brighten up something. So I'm going for the white color, because when I paint white on my gray layer, then it will be brightening up. If I use a brush now, of course, the brush, sorry, that's for a little bit later. If I use a brush now, soft round brush, obviously I am, so let me brush, then fix my brush to something soft. And if I now paint on it with regular brushes, you notice, of course, that it's way too bright, this layer, because I should not paint in pure white color. So what you want to do is, you want to make sure that the flow is really low, so really, really low. And that means the longer you paint on something, the more white it gets. Let's have a look at, if I turn my layer from the soft light to a regular layer, then you see what the effect is. So when I brush in with a flow of 3%, you can see it slowly gets white. And when I keep it longer, my mouse on, then it will slowly get whiter. So a simple stroke and the next stroke, next. So it's getting whiter and whiter. And this is what we're going to use to brighten up our image. So let's change the blend mode back to vivid light. Soft light. Soft light. And let's paint on it and brighten up certain areas. So I'm especially around the eyes, I would like to brighten up something. So let's get in here at maybe 200%. Let's brush it, make the brush much smaller. And I'm gonna take care of a little bit under the eyes. Use a larger brush so it's not that obvious. Also here. Maybe there, not that strong. It's also pretty. In this case, you are not destroying any texture, but you are generally brightening up the image a bit. So, and also I'm also darkening a little bit. No, let's darken it first, maybe with a larger brush. Darkening means I would switch foreground and background color. Now I'm painting in black, so I can darken these areas slightly. I can also, if I want more of a jawline, but Angelina Jolie has anyway very strong cheekbones, so and what else? Darkening, yeah, that's good. Here's some highlights. I don't want to do too much. That's not the topic for. So here is the before and after. Can you see it when I switch? Between, I think you can see it quite well. What I brightened up a little bit more, brightening up, I noticed around the eyes, especially with a smaller brush. And if you do this in detail, then you can spend like hours and hours doing that. But for right now, I think we're quite happy with what we achieved. Okay, so maybe do a little extra on the eyebrows. Good. Here we are. Let's zoom out. And that was the dodge and burn layer. Dodge and burn for brightening up something and or darkening. If the effect now you think is too strong, you can always take the dodge and burn layer and lower its opacity so that you're not applying so much of the dodge and burn. But I think it's quite good with it. So if I'm satisfied with it, again, if you want to keep it, make a layer copy. I'm going to merge it down again with Control E and merge it with my layer to smoothen. Now the next part that we're going for is actually the softening of the skin, and you can see that there is a lot of we saw it before when we had the check layer where we had the color contrast of the red part. So we want to make sure that it's really a smooth skin, but not that it's looking like plastic. Therefore, we're going to start with a layer copy. So I'm going to take my copy layer and make a copy. This time right click and duplicate layer. And the copy now will get a different blend mode, and the blend mode will be vivid light. So there it is. The vivid light blend mode makes it, of course, really strange, but be aware it's getting much more strange. And now I'm going to take this vivid light layer and I'm going to invert it. Make an inverted layer out of it. So in this case, you either can do Control I is the keyboard or the keyboard shortcut, or you go to Image Adjustment, Invert, Control I. That inverts the layer, and that basically leaves me with a gray image of doing something. So will soon make sense. It's getting worse up to now. First, next thing is we're going to turn our layer into a smart object, because now we're going to apply to filter, and if the filter amount doesn't work or it's too much, we can always change it when it's a smart object. So select your layer, right click and convert to smart object. That doesn't change, of course, anything, but now when we apply a filter, it's gonna we can change it later on. The first filter that we're going to apply is a blur filter. Strangely, when we apply a blur filter to the inverted layer, it will sharpen it. So let's get the Gaussian blur here selected, and I choose filter, blur, and I choose a Gaussian blur. And you can see right away, usually the value here is that's usual is between 3 and 4. So you should blur enough to get a lot of grain back, but not too much to enhance the edges so much. So you can see it's like gives it like glowing edges when you go larger. So I would guess that it's something high, 3 point and a high number, so 3.7 in my case. Anyway, between 3 and 4 is fine with the Gaussian blur. The next thing is, and now to actually soften the layer below, I'm going to apply a high pass filter. The high pass filter can be found under Filter, Other, High Pass. And the high pass filter now suddenly turns my layer into a smooth layer on top, and now there's a certain radius that you can pick, and when you start looking, it's of course getting softer and softer. So I would suggest that you choose one that gives you enough softness for the skin. It's not the final picture that you see, enough softness of the skin, but not too much so that you only get a blurry thing at the end. So I'm going to use something that is, in my case, maybe a 15, lower than 20, 15, 16, somewhere here, 18. 18, that looks quite fine. So now we have a blurry skin tone, but that's maybe too much. We already got the orange in here, so let's get a little bit less than that. Yeah, okay, 12. Good, so I got the blurry, the blurriness on the skin, and this is where I want it. So this is all perfect here, also the forehead and nose and so on. I'm not going to keep the rest of the blur there. So let's hit OK. And what we're doing now is the layer that is on top, the one with the vivid light, simply we just mask it. So we mask it to use only certain areas. And we know when we had a layer mask, we hit the button layer mask there, but that usually creates a white layer mask. If you hold the Alt key and click on the layer mask, it will create a black layer mask. Or you can also create a white layer mask and invert it then into black. But Alt click on the layer mask will create a black layer mask. So it means the layer has no effect on the image at all. So now you start painting all the areas in white where you want some blur. So you click on the mask, make sure you paint in white, use a brush, and then start painting. This time, to make it faster, I use a flow of 100. So it means I paint white right away. And I'm going to paint back the mask. Let's start with a hard-edged brush to get the large areas, and then we do the details with the soft. So I'm going to go for the large areas here. Don't paint over the eyes, don't paint over the edges of important things. The tip of the nose, the lips, of course. Don't paint over the contour line of the face, of the jaws. So that is all not really good to paint on. So and I do it really quickly, and then I go back into the detail and do it with a smaller brush, where I can actually. Sometimes it's also worth to, so let's paint the cheek. Sometimes it's also worth to have a look at the mask. So this is what we have painted so far, because there's always some spots that you miss. And then on the mask, and now we get a little bit closer into the details. Let's go for like 200%, and here is my brush, and I'm going to use a soft brush now, a soft round brush. And again, I'm painting in white and the areas that I want to get more of the details. You can see as soon as you paint, so of course you have to leave the eyebrows out because you want them sharp and crisp, and the eyes. The areas you don't want sharp and crisp, you can just soften it up with your by removing them from the mask. You can also see that the edge is not that much of a problem. So when you paint closer to the edge, but you want to avoid details like the tip of the nose and the nostrils. Sometimes also in here is good, but in this case I would like to paint over because there's a lot of like structure on the texture on her skin. So also here, see the. Okay, don't get too close to the lips. See, the mistake I made is still visible here. The one where I didn't pay attention to match it closely. So, and good. I'm not going to spend a lot more time, so let's blur some of the hairline here. Don't forget things that you also want to blur, and if there is more on it, like skin or no, skin, if there is something on, like the neck or the shoulders and hands and so on, you also of course have to paint those. Good. If the effect is getting too strong, so if you don't like the plastic look, then the pores are really strong there. If you don't like it so much, you can always take the layer and lower its opacity, and you will get the original skin color back, which looks really uneven there. So I'm just going for maybe 90%. That is, gives me a little bit of the texture from before back. Good. So that was the skin retouching method. Here's the before and after, by the way. The before and after would be here. before and after, and you can see the change, of course, quite strongly. Now, I also mentioned we are going to bring a little bit of color back into the image. In this case, I would like to add a little bit color to the lips. Again, there's lots of tutorials out there that you can check out. I just want to show you a simple method of how to do it. In this picture, you can see it. By the way, the lighting situation, if you can judge it from the look, but you can always see it in the eyes of a person when you're that close. You can see that this was shot, I guess, with two soft lights. Maybe one of them is a window, but I guess both of them are artificial lights. It looks like the photographer is hiding parts of one of them. So you got two lights, one very frontal and one a little bit to the side, like over the shoulder of the photographer. And from a very low angle, so basically gives you an even lighting from the front. That also means that both lips, lower and upper lip, have about the same brightness. Usually one of them is brighter and you got much more shadows here in the mouth. This is very even lighting. So I'm gonna do the painting of the color on the lips, both lips at the same time. But if they are a little bit different, you wanna do them lip by lip. So you start with one and then you do the other. Because one thing that you do to one lip might not work on the other one, because we are only separating it by brightness and of the layer below. So let's do this. I'm going to zoom in to 200%. What I'm going to do is I am going to add a solid color adjustment layer. So here is the adjustment layer, solid color, and I'm going to pick a red, really strong red, maybe a little towards the purple. Here, it's best to do it with hue, saturation, and brightness. So here's all full, maybe a little bit less bright saturation, and you can later on for the darks we can brighten it down. There it is. And for this adjustment layer that we've added, we set the blend mode to multiply. So here it is, and the blend mode is to multiply here. To multiply. Multiply blend mode usually darkens everything. So it darkens with the layer below. If it's for highlights and so on, then maybe you want to use a different, we don't want to use a blend mode screen, because screen brightens up a bit. So we're now targeting the darker area of the lips. The red solid layer has a mask. And this time we want it, of course, only on the lips, not on the whole picture. So we're going to invert the mask. Control-I on the keyboard makes a black mask, which is now no effect on the picture at all. Now I click on the mask, use a brush, paint in white. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time painting the mask, but I'm going to paint on the mask. So use a smaller brush for the contours. And of course, if you want to spend more time on it, then this is a good point where you can spend a lot of time. And again, the lower lip first. Oops. No problem if you mess something up. You can always use X to switch foreground and background color. X, and then paint it away on the outside. Okay, so there it is. Maybe here, not sure about this, and now use a bigger brush to fill it up. As I said, I'm going to do it for both lips at the same time for demonstration purpose. So there it is, my mask, my perfect red. That is of course too much, and it looks like really a piece of color, and there's no highlights on it, no glossiness to our lipstick. So we are going to always look at the spot that I messed up, and here's the not glossy at all. So what we're doing is we're going to take our first color, and we're going to double click over here, and we get the layer style, and there is the blend-if value for the underlaying layer. So it means you look at the underlaying layer, which is the picture, of course, and when the blend mode is multiplied, it's only multiplied with certain brightness pixels. Right now it's multiplied with everything. You can see it here. These are the dark pixels and the bright pixels. What I want is, I want only the bright pixels. So not, only the dark pixels, not the bright ones. So I take the underlying layer and move the bright ones away. And you can see right away that they are not red anymore. I'm just doing it really strong. So it only applies it to the darkest of those pixels. That looks, of course, weird, but if I use the Alt key to separate those two values, I can make a gradient out of it. So I'm gonna use it only for the darker areas. So when you pull it in, you remove the bright areas from this color. That's fine. Now I'm going to do that one more time. This time, so I'm just doing it actually two more times. One time for the brightest parts and one time for the darker parts. So let's go for this. Is right now we have the darker parts here. I am going to clone my layer one more time. Clone it. Control J. So, Control J. The cloned copy, I'm going to change my color slightly because the darker ones, I'm going to make the color darker and maybe more saturated, and it's already fully saturated. And I'm going to play with my values here. This time, I'm going to remove it remove the darker ones. No, that's not good. Should have done it the other way. Same way again. So Alt click over here. Yeah, we do the. So, and the last one, the last copy. Again, we can play with the opacities, so take down a little bit of the color. And the last copy, Control J, clone. The last copy, I'm going to change the blend mode to, to screen, which brightens it up a lot. Also, the red color, I'm going for something, I should have done the dark, a little bit desaturated. I'm going for a little bit more purplish color. So like this, you can change it anytime. And it's a screen, and I am double clicking here, and on this one, I'm going to remove the brighter parts, and also on the mask, I will remove the edges. So Alt, move those apart. So, like this, and okay, that is only, you got this purple look here on the glossiness, but also on the edges. So for the last one, I have to change my mask slightly a bit to make it a bit smaller so that I don't have it at the edges. So I'm here on the mask, I am painting in black, and bring back, remove the edges for the highlights. Then we got the real strong highlights in white, and then the softer ones here. Again, when we zoom out, then we want to remove some of the color. Looks a little strange over here. We want to remove some of the color. We can always reduce our opacity of the layers. Okay, like the brightness is quite good. Maybe the middle one, the darker one. No, it's good to keep it dark. Okay, so that was for the lips. We already had in one example the eyes. You can do a similar thing to the eyes. There's also, again, many tutorials how to brighten up the eyes to get some highlights in it and so on. If you colorize them with a simple piece of colored, you know, we already did it before. So we just added a layer, then we pick some color. I think I used the green eyes the last time. Then you, on your layer, just place a hard brush that has approximately the eye size. So, like this. Then change the blend mode. Again, you can try, there's a vivid light, hard light, blend mode. You can also try color, but it depends on the color of the eyes that you had before. Then, of course, I would remove the parts that are not on the eyes. So remove, again, I'm going to make it real fast. Remove the color from here. So like this, and then play with the opacity. Remove the middle, remove the one in the iris. That should not be tinted green on the layer in black. So also the reflection wouldn't have that much of the eye color. So like this, and then play with the opacity of the whole thing to give it a slightly green touch, a little green touch. Like this. Very little green touch. Okay, there's two more things I would like to show you before before a whole thing gets too long. It's already 40 minutes. Let's get the eyelashes. You saw it before. If you want to add some additional or longer eyelashes to your model or to your picture, you can just go to go online and check out for free Photoshop brushes and eyelashes. And then you usually find a file for that. You can download tons of them, and that you just drag into Photoshop, and then from then on nothing happens. But from then on, when you use a brush tool on a new layer, I'm going to do this on a new layer, and then you go to your brushes, you will find your eyelashes somewhere. So here's an eyelash brushes. I've got this mislits something, and now you got all kinds of different eyelashes. So you just browse through them. So some of them are bottom eyelashes, some are top eyelashes, and all you need to do is place them on a separate layer. Maybe mirror them if you want. There's only left eyes. There's only for one eye, I guess. And then you can let's quickly do it here. So I'm going to the brush size, of course, depends on how big the eyelashes are. So you have to change the size in order to fit. That is too big. And then you put it on a new layer. Not in green, sorry. So where do we want? Black. Yes, we do black, and then we can change it. So you can put it anywhere, just here. Then you can move it around with the move tool. Of course, you can also clone it next to it and play with the color, so not only black, or play with the opacity, make it not as strong. If the size fits quite well, like we did here in this one, you can also zoom in, maybe one more time, and paint it with a different flow, not full flow, but and paint some of them. Get more density to that. Okay, they can be mirrored, vertical. Oh, no, that was not the mirroring here, sorry. Here is the rotation. that you can rotate it. What I usually do, I'm not mirroring it. I'm taking the whole layer, make a copy of the whole layer, then use Control T for mirroring it. I think that's good, and place it onto the other side. When the perspective is not right, then you can also use the free deformation tool to adjust it. There it is, and that's it. So I just added. Let's merge those two layers so that we only have one. And here are the eyebrows, only the bottom ones, before and after. Really strong, but it's quite fun. And the last thing I would like to show you is, so to say, the end of it. Let's get final. Let's quickly save. I'll make a copy. Photoshop file, yes, because I am quickly merging it all, and I don't want to lose that, so I'm going to use flatten image. I flattened the whole thing, and now it's only one picture left. And the last thing I would like to show you is a filter that you can use even if you don't do any changes to your image. A filter, Liquify, and the Liquify filter, sorry, it opens on another screen here. The Liquify filter allows you, of course, to use any of the Liquify tools, but now in the newer versions, it also there's a face-aware Liquify, and it finds elements of the face automatically, so it sees where's the mouth, where's the nose, and so on, the cheek, and the form of the face, and you can use some of those presets to change things. For example, if you want the chin height. Okay, that is not good because it's moving in from the picture. Let's do the eyes. Let's look at the eyes. Here's the eyes. If you link left and right, then you can change the eye size. You can enlarge and make smaller and so on. So of course, I'm going for the extreme values, but if you just want to slightly enlarge an eyes and so on. Nose, mouth, anything. Now nose height can be changed. And the width of the nose. And so on. So that is something that you can also change. And of course, not only the face-aware Liquify is there, but you can also liquify something by hand. So here's the push and pull tool where you can, let's try a push and pull with a larger brush. Not that large. So larger brush, and then you can like, okay, that looks weird, I know. I'm not gonna save it. You can like brushing. This is usually for, you know, the neck smaller, the shoulders, move them up and so on. So this is all the Liquify tools. There's a lot of fun in it. Check it out with your own image or with a different image. It's even better when the image is straight from the front. I'm not gonna hit OK. I'm gonna keep it as it is. Okay, that was our skin retouching collection of different tools. I hope you liked it. Check out the additional videos that are out there on the internet for every single task. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.